friend of mine who is a terribly therapy phobic, and I kept when I get together and have dinner or lunch with him, I tell him some of the things I'm doing with my clients, and he said I could sure use that, but I'm never going to go into therapy. So why don't you write a book about for people like me that are therapy phobic, but need to know more about their psychological processes. So that was the first impetus, and I've been thinking about it. And I kind of started an outline on the book after talking to him for a number of times, and him bringing that topic up repeatedly. And then on the 4th of July, I work for BetterHelp and see online clients, and many of them are international. So I thought I'll just stay active today, and I'll get some international clients, which I did. And then I had a break. I thought, well, I'll just go out and watch a little TV and see what's happening in the world out there. And turned on CNN, and they were reporting another mass shooting on a parade in Highland Park, Illinois. And I happen to know people who live in Highland Park, and they often tell me it's the safest place in the world to live. And so I said, how can that happen in Highland Park, Illinois? And I got really upset. I said, every time I turn on the TV, I hear about another mass shooting. I am sick and tired of this. When is it going to stop? And I started pacing and talking to myself and getting upset and angry more and more. And then I thought, wait a minute here, Barry. Why are you so upset about this? I'm using my own techniques on myself here. And I thought, well, I don't know exactly, but I think that I feel powerless and helpless to do anything to change it. But then I thought, talking to myself, I said, Barry, you're not powerless and helpless. There's things you can do. You can talk on the podcast you're doing about the causes of mass shooters, which I've been doing the whole month. And then you can also, and also in thinking about it and then getting more information about this shooting, the shooter had 2 encounters with the law where he should have been put on a 72-hour hold, psychiatric hold, and he wasn't. So it showed me that the whole mental health system is part of the problem. It's broken. And so I said, well, maybe I need to write a book that meets the needs of my friend and also gives people the tools that help them improve their own mental health. And so those were the main reasons I wrote the book. And also the fact that I've been having a great deal of success with my clients. And I tell all my clients, my job is to teach you everything I know so you can do therapy on yourself. And that's the goal I have with every client. So I said, well, gee, why couldn't that same goal be put into a book of all the things that I've done with my clients that work and put it in such a simple form that anyone could pick it up and use it and become their own therapist. And so those are the two objectives of the book are, first of all, to help people increase their psychological intelligence. And the second is to help them become their own therapist. Those are kind of noble goals, but
they're big. They're definitely big goals.
I mean, I'm having success with my clients. I just got an email from a client I haven't seen in maybe a year, and he's telling me about the progress he's made after he stopped therapy with me. And he's using the tools that I gave him, and he's doing his own therapy now.
That's wonderful.
So I know it works. And so what I've tried to do in the book is to make it as simple as possible. And I do that with my clients too. This is not totally rocket science, but it does require you to understand the psychological processes that are at work in you, and so that you can make good decisions about how to handle those. And so that's how I put it in the book too. Most people, and I don't blame them, because wherever they've been taught, don't know anything about how their psychological processes work. And often they make up things that are not true. For example, when people are in the middle of something and they get triggered by a memory of something from the past, what do? Well, the first thing they usually do is try to calm down and not have any just kind of intense feelings going on in their body at the moment from the memory of something from their past. And so they either self-medicate with alcohol, drugs, or sex, or any other addiction, or they do whatever they can to just calm down and make the feelings go away. That doesn't do any good because anything that happens from the past that isn't finished will continue to repeat itself. You will continue to be triggered by that until you figure out what's going on with that. So I've developed a 4-step model for people, a very simple model. It says, okay, you're being triggered here, and how's that affecting your life right now? That's step one. Is it really disrupting your life in a way that you want to do something about it? And usually the answer is yes. And then, okay, the next thing you need to do is pay attention to the feelings you're having and see if you can locate where those feelings might have occurred earlier in your life in some learning experience that didn't get finished. And sometimes, in fact, I've had outstanding success by just asking people, okay, what are you feeling now? Close your eyes, anchor it in your body. Where is it in your body? They say it's here or it's in their belly or wherever. And then I say, okay, now open your eyes and close them again, anchoring with that feeling, and tell me the first time you ever felt that way. And they know it. They can, I mean, I've had clients within 2 seconds tell me exactly where it came from. Some people aren't as that clear, but they know it happened sometime when they were a child. They sometimes can identify the age. I had one guy who identified the exact time and age it happened and the whole situation had happened. Within 2 seconds, he had it. And it was basically the unfinished business that was just totally disrupting his life. And so that's step two. Then the third step, which it can be tricky, is see if you can figure out what was unfinished about that makes it continue to show up in your life. And the usual kind of suspects on that one are you didn't get to say what you needed to say in that situation. And maybe it would be may have that have been a prudent action because if you'd have spoken up and said what was on your mind, it might have gotten you in more trouble. So or you didn't get to do something that you needed to do in that situation. I mean, sometimes it's just to get away from the situation and you weren't able to. And then the other two things is what did you need from the other people that you didn't get? Either what did you need them to say certain things? Did you need them to do? Did you need them to comfort you? And maybe you didn't get any comfort from them. You just got criticism or abuse. And so those are generally the missing pieces that have to be filled. And then the fourth step is to begin to look at what you can do right now to finish whatever was unfinished about that. And usually there are plenty of things you can do because you have more resources now than you did then. And so you can figure out a way to. I mean, a lot of my clients, even today, because of the unfinished business, they don't speak up, and they've lost their voice in situations where they need to have a voice to protect themselves, and they don't. They just sit there and take it again. And so that's the one thing I notice is that a lot of my clients need to get their voice back and be able to speak up when they need to protect themselves. And so it's like boundary setting. So anyway, that's the basis for the simple formula that I put forth in the book. And then to help people with that 4-step model, I put an online workbook with the print book. So in every chapter, at the end of the chapter, there's a link to that chapter in a workbook, which has self-quizzes, self-assessment tools, and case examples about how to better understand and make that happen in your life. So a lot of resources in there. Every chapter, and there's 40 chapters in the book, 41 actually. The last chapter is my story. And so I always had my story as an
I think,
example, because I
yeah,
mean, everything I ever did for and continue to do for clients, and that I use whatever worked for me first. And if it
right.
worked for me, then I'm willing to try it with others. If it didn't work for me, I throw it away. I don't use it with anybody. So the way in the book, the way I help people get started is in the first chapter, there's a self quiz, and right in the book, it's also in the workbook if you want. And all of the things in the workbook are downloadable PDFs, so you can download them and take these self quiz separate from having to do it in the book, and that makes it easier. But the first self quiz is how to become your own self therapist, and there's 36 items about if you became your own self therapist and were successful, these are the outcomes you can expect. And then each of those items in that self quiz becomes a chapter in the book.
Hmm.
And then that's connected to a workbook with all the other self quizzes and case examples to elaborate and help that person to make better use of that item. And I ask everybody in that self quiz to rate themselves from 1 to 10. 1 would be, I don't know much about that. And 10 would be, I got that one mastered. Don't have to even read the book about that one. And then I say, okay, after you've filled out this inventory and rated yourself on each of them, the items where you marked yourself 5 or below is where you start. So you go to those items in the book where you rated yourself at 5 or below, and that's where